seventh bracha of Shemoneh Esrei is the bracha of Re'eva Anyenu V'Riva Rivenu. Baruch Atah Hashem Goel Yisrael. Hashem is the Redeemer of Bnei Yisrael. We ask Hashem to save us, redeem us from our difficulties, our tsaros that we live in day in and day out. And the Rokeach, from the earliest of the Rishonim, he points out in his Parish on the Siddur that there are 17 words in the bracha. And he says, as he does with all the brachos, he tries to find a hint somewhere in the Chumash to what energy is being propelled through the bracha based on the Chumash. So where do we see this idea of being redeemed from our difficulties, from our tsaros? Where do we find that in the Chumash? And the Rokeach says it's in this week's Parsha. Parsha's Behar. We have the word Ga'al, Geulah, 17 times in this week's Parsha. And since it's mentioned 17 times in this week's Parsha, therefore, we have 17 words in the bracha that talks about Geulah, about redemption. Okay, there's really an 18th time, just for the record. He says we don't count, for some reason, Lo Yigael, in Parak Chafei, Pasuk Lamed. But, for the record, the Magen Avram writes in Shulchan Aruch and Siman Kuf Tezayin and the Mishnah Berurah that really we should say the word na. The second word in most of our Siddurim is in parentheses. Re'ein na ve'anyenu v'riva rivenu. He says you should say the word na, which means that we have 18, and that would correspond to the actual 18 words in this week's Parsha. Okay, sounds nice. 17 or 18 times it says in this week's Parsha the word Ga'al. Okay, the bracha in Shemoneh Esrei that's about Geulah has 17 or 18 words. Perfect. However, if you take a step back and you actually open up the Chumash and you realize what our Parsha is talking about, it has absolutely nothing to do with what the bracha in Shemoneh Esrei is talking about. In Shemoneh Esrei, it's all about Re'ina ve'anyenu v'riva rivenu Hashem. We're having difficulties. We need you to fight our wars. We need you to redeem us quickly from this terrible situation that we're in. Life's rough. It's difficult. I have issues with my friends. I have issues with my family members. I have issues with my school, with my job, with my roommates. I have issues. Hashem, save me quickly. Redeem me from my difficulties. In this week's Parsha, every single one of the word Ga'al, time that mentions Ga'al, has absolutely nothing to do with difficulties and being redeemed from it. It's talking about what happens if you sell a house in a walled city. When could you redeem that house? What happens if you sell a house in the cities of the Levium? When could you redeem that one? Redeeming houses in unwalled cities. Stei Achuza, ancestral lands, which were sold and go back. They get redeemed during the 50th year, during the year of Yovel. It's all about houses, fields, getting sold and redeemed. Nothing to do with any difficulties, no hardships. So it's true that the word Ga'al is there, but that's a reason to then put that into the Shemoneh Esrei on something that has nothing to do with anything? So in order to answer this question, we have to actually understand, what does it mean, Geulah? What does it mean, redemption? We always say, we're waiting for the redemption. What does that mean? There's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, all the way at the end, where the Mishnah says that Kol ha'omer davar b'shem amro, mevi Geulah la'olam. If someone says something over that he heard from someone else, you heard a Dvar Torah from someone. So you could get up there in Yeshiva at dinner, and you could say an amazing Dvar Torah and look really cool and amazing, but you really stole it from someone else, right? So if you say it over in the name of the person that you heard it, says the Mishnah, Mevi Geulah la'olam, you bring redemption to the world. It's really special, you bring redemption to the world. Shenemar v'tomer Esther lamelech b'shem Mordechai. Esther said something to Achashverosh in the name of Mordechai, and that was the impetus for the redemption of the Purim story. So you see that you should say things over in the name of the person that you heard it from. It seems like it's like a nice idea, if you do something nice, you say it over in the name of the person that said it, so you get a prize that you now bring the Geulah. But they have nothing to do with each other. But there are a lot of good things that we do in life. So why aren't everything that we do that's good bring the redemption to the world? So the Maral in his commentary on Pirkei Avos over there says it's not just a nice thing that you get rewarded from. It happens to be that the reward is redemption to the world. But it's actually the same idea, and it's midah k'neged midah. Measure for measure, the action to the reward. What is that? So he explains that Geulah, redemption, is about taking something that's out of place, that's not where it's supposed to be or how it's supposed to be, and bringing it back to its source, bringing it back to the way that it was supposed to be from the beginning. So if I go ahead and I say a Dvar Torah, I say some nice idea, so the idea is now floating in the air. You grab it, okay, and you now say it over by yourself. When you do that, you've further distanced that idea from its source. The source was for me, right? You quote a Gemara, and you don't mention that it's a Gemara. Now you've further distanced it from its root, from the place where it was supposed to be. When you go ahead and you say it in the name of the person you heard it from, in the name of the source, you've brought it back to its source, to its root, to the place that it was supposed to be. Since you act in that form, you bring Geulah into the world. Geulah, bringing things back to the way that it was supposed to be. The Jewish people were in Mitzrayim. They were slaves. It was terrible. That's not the way life is supposed to be. Life is supposed to be that we're free. When we're redeemed, it's not just that we were taken out of slavery, but we were brought back to the way that we were supposed to be. When we daven for Geulah, that we want to come back to Eretz Yisrael, that's because the Jews are supposed to be in Eretz Yisrael, nowhere else. This is where we're supposed to be. So when we come back, we are coming back to where we're supposed to be. And therefore, the Geulah is all the different types of Geulah are the same. I sell a house. It's been in my family for years and generations. It's my family's. It belongs to us. It's part of our fabric. It's a part of our DNA. That home, the land, is supposed to be by me. Okay, I sold it for some money, and now coming back to me, it's coming back to its place. So the Geulah in this week's Parshas Behar, is really the same of every Geulah. Same with the Geulah in the Shemoneh Esrei. We're davening for things to be back to the way it is supposed to be. We're off course, we're not where it's supposed to be, and we want to bring it back. And the first thing that we have to remember is that things are not the way it's supposed to be. When we fall into a form of comfort, things are good. I like it here. I like what I'm doing. I like the way things are. So that's the first recipe for disaster in bringing redemption. Because if you don't realize that it's not good to be in jail, you're not going to want to get out. You're not going to want to bring things to a better and more perfect place. And therefore, especially when we're davening our Shemoneh Esrei, that's a time for us to focus and think about how this isn't necessarily the way it's supposed to be. The Rishonim ask, Rashi already asks this in Maseches Megillah, that we have two brachos in our Shemoneh Esrei which seem to be repetitive. On one hand, we have the bracha of Re'ei v'anyenu v'riva rivenu Baruch Hashem Goel Yisrael Hashem, redeem us from our difficulties. Then a few brachos later, Tikah b'shofar gadol l'cheiruseinu Hashem, should have the big shofar blow, v'kapsenu yachim be'arba kavod, bring everyone back together, Baruch Hashem mekabeis Yisrael. That's also, gather everyone together, also that's Geulah. We have two brachos about Geulah. So he says, one is the national Geulah, that's the second bracha, that all Jewish people are going to come back. And the first one is my personal difficulties. In fact, some of the very, very early Achronim say, there's halacha that you're allowed to add into Shemoneh Esrei your own personal needs. In the bracha of Refa'enu, people put in names of people that they know that are sick. So he says, in this bracha, Re'ei v'anyenu, you should add in any personal difficulties that you're having. Because that's what this bracha is about. It's I'm supposed to be living a good, clean, smooth life. It's not like that. So personally, I'm in exile. Personally, I'm having difficulties. I want Hashem to bring me back to where I'm supposed to be. So you can add in whatever you want. You're having a problem with a roommate, having a problem with a girlfriend, having a problem with a job. That's where you put it. In this bracha, Hashem, help me out with this specific situation. In the middle of this bracha, my personal tzaros. The other Achronim, the Shlach Kadosh and Rav Yaakov Emden, in their Sidurim, they say something different. It says there are actually two stages to the national Geulah. There's the physical return, and then there's the spiritual return. And they say the second bracha of Tekah b'shofar is about the spiritual return of the Jewish people. We're off course spiritually. Even if physically we might actually have that return, but we don't have the spiritual return. And we're davening for that. And Yeshua Heller, he lived in the 1800s. And he has a siddur, it's a Peirush on a siddur called the siddur-based tefillah. And he says something very fascinating. He says that what gullus are we in spiritually? What is something that we want to work on? Step one is to recognize we're in gullus, so we have exile. Step two is try to fix it. What can we do to make it better? Let's bring it back. What can we do? So he says there are two aspects that we're in exile for, all the way back from the times of Adam Arishon, from the Chet of Adam. He says one is that we ruined our eyes. How's that? The pasuk says in Bereshis, Perek Gimel, pasuk Vav, "V'teira isha ki tova eitz l'machal." The woman saw that the tree was good to eat. V'chi sa'avehu l'einayim, was desirable to the eyes. It was something about ruining the eyes. And the second were the ears. The pasuk says, the pasuk is Zayin over there, "La'adam amar ki shamato l'kol ishtecha." Man was held accountable because he listened to the advice of his wife. So there was a problem in the listening, and there was a problem in the seeing. That all got changed and fixed at the time that Bnei Yisrael got to Har Sinai. We're leading up to Shavuos now. We're getting ready for that tremendous, tremendous time. Over there, the Gemara tells us, we got back to the way it was supposed to be. And what do we see over there? The pasuk says, "Kol ha'am ro'im et hakolot." They saw the sounds. There was a tikkun. There was a fixing of their eyes. And also, v'sham'u es kol Hashem mitoch Aish. They heard the voice of Hashem from the fire. So there was something powerful, holy about the seeing and about the hearing. And that purified any damage that happened. Unfortunately, afterwards, we lost that. At the time, though, we got the Torah Shebiksav, the written Torah, that's for our eyes, and the Torah Shebal Peh, the oral Torah that we learned by listening. It was through the Kedusha that we obtained at our Sinai that we were able to get a Torah that we see and a Torah that we hear. But we ruined things, and here we are. So we need to fix now. We got to go ahead and try to fix those portals of our eyes and our ears, of try to bring back that Kedusha. It's not the way it's supposed to be. We're not necessarily looking at the things that we're supposed to be looking at. We're not necessarily listening to the things that we're supposed to be listening to. The types of conversations that are being had. It's not where we're supposed to be. And therefore, in our state, first we have to realize that this isn't perfect. That's the first thing. We can't get too comfortable, no matter how geshmak it is to sit over here in the Beis Medrash. We have to realize that there's a lot more that life is supposed to have to it for ourselves and for the entire Jewish people. And we have to realize, after we notice that, what can I do about it? So on a personal level, we could try to fix those areas that we have automatic and immediate control over, our eyes, our ears, to try to bring it back to where it's supposed to be. And the Mizrat Hashem, through our tefillah, through our recognizing where we are and where we're supposed to be, and through our actions of trying to go ahead and bringing things back to where it's supposed to be, we'll all be zocha to the Geulah. Meher v'yameinu. Shavua tov.